Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Beware the Board, a horror podcast where we watch a randomly selected horror movie every week. I'm Bob.
I'm Ben.
Holy shit, Ben.
Season 5.
Season fucking 5. I can't believe it.
Did you think we'd get this far?
I'm gonna be honest.
No.
No.
Yeah.
We wrapped up season 1 and I went, damn, I really don't know if I can keep doing this. And then it was like, well, we're about, how many, you know what episode this is? Like, actually?
Well,
This is 41 of
technically
the
it's
board.
41, yeah. But I don't know for movies because it's not
It's
easy
like almost
count.
80. We're almost 80 episodes into this fucking show.
Yeah, but like for the board stuff, I don't know how many movies that is.
Oh, I don't know.
Much less. We do way too many extras.
Well, yeah, convention prep is kind of, look, it's over. We finished it.
I know. But for something we do in our free time, we do way too many extra shit.
Yeah, but it's fun.
It is,
Like,
but it's like,
Dude,
it's so much work.
it's so much work. I was listening to the Tucker and Dale edit because that's like one of the most recent episodes that came out
That came out what? Last
Monday.
Monday. Yeah.
It's such a funny episode. So fun. I love that movie. But yeah, it's just like this is a fun hobby thing, but we do put in a lot of extra time and effort, and it's kind of ridiculous. But that aside, welcome to season 5, everybody. I'm excited for this one.
Yeah.
First off, we need a name. I'm just putting that into the universe.
Oh, yeah. My jokey name was Jason X. Because we have meta slashers,
Yeah.
camp movies,
Uh-huh.
and space.
Good name.
I don't think it's great, but that's gonna be our placeholder for now.
I like it. I was trying to come up with something good, and I couldn't come up with anything good. I spent like an hour last night trying to come up with something, and I was just like, no. Nothing comes to mind. Jason X isn't bad, though.
Nah, it's our actual name's gonna be something stupid like Scream 10 at Space Camp.
Speaking of Scream, do you say, I already told you this, but I'll say it on the podcast because I don't think I said it on the podcast. They announced the director for Scream 7. It's the same dude that did Happy Death Day, which I know you haven't
We
seen.
talked about this.
Did we see it? Was it on the podcast?
I think it was on the podcast. But at this point, it all blends together, so who knows?
Well, if I didn't say it on the podcast, I said it on the podcast now. I don't think it was on the show. I think it was like separately. We were just talking. That's pretty cool. I don't actually know who directed Scream 6. So, I don't know. I just thought that was interesting because I vaguely remember hearing good things about that movie.
Happy Death Day or Scream 6?
Both.
Oh, okay.
But since I heard good things, I'm just excited because, A, we haven't watched Scream, so I don't really have, knowledge of that.
And you haven't seen the first one,
I've seen the first one.
have you?
No, I haven't seen the first one. I lied. I haven't seen the first one, but I know how it ends. Oh, my God. Some more Scream talk. Sorry, I forgot. I was on Twitter today, and I scrolled past something, and it was a picture, and it said, here's a picture of all the Scream killers. And I went, no! All the ghost faces. It was
No.
all of them.
I
I scrolled past it so fast to avoid anything. I was so freaked out, Ben.
want to mention that really quick. People are so fucking annoying with spoilers for Scream.
I
Like,
know!
it is probably worse than any other franchise I've interacted with. People are so bad about it. They post, like, because, you know, if you know the premise for Scream, the killer's kind of a secret. Cause
Yeah, it's like a whodunit thing.
Right. That's like an intrinsic part of the franchise and what makes some of the movies really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes makes the movies really, really bad, depending on who it is. But it's a secret, and that's kind of cool. People just blatantly post that everywhere, and it's just worse than any other franchise I've ever seen, with just like, here's a picture of the killers.
It's like, why would you? It was literally a picture of every single Scream killer.
Yeah, and it's just super casual about it, too, so it's never expected.
No,
Like,
it
I'll just
scared the
be-
shit out of me.
Somewhere on the internet, YouTube, wherever, it's like, boom, killers. And I'm like,
I almost had every single one ruined for me. I would have been so angry if I had not read. If I just looked at the picture and not read the top of it first, I would have lost my mind.
you're already going to be pissed off when we eventually watch Scream that you had the first one spoiled for you.
Yeah, that's true. I'm gonna be mad about it because, like, that's actually a good point. I hadn't thought about that.
Because just straight up, the first one's the best one. So,
Really?
yeah. And the ending of that film is the best part of that film. So, sucks to be you.
That'd be me if I. Oh, can you imagine how much more disappointed I would have been? Never mind. I almost mentioned something that hasn't come out yet. The thing that comes out the day after this one. If I had known the
We've
ending
already
of that
mentioned
film,
what's coming out
that's
tomorrow.
true.
Yeah.
If I had known the end of Friday the 13th, part like the first one, before we watched it, I would have been so mad.
Yeah.
But I didn't, and it was great.
Which, by the way, guys, check out, we're doing Friday the 13th as, like, a series coverage thing.
Yeah, a whole thing.
And we're coming out with the first episode, Friday the 13th, tomorrow.
Saturday. And then
Yeah.
the next one will be on Wednesday, part 2.
I know it's not a part of board stuff, but we were kind of like, don't know when we're ever going to cover Friday the 13th. And we made this decision before we, of course, got camp movies. So
on the board. Which
fuck
is like,
us.
God damn it. And we already watched Sleepaway Camp for the convention prep stuff.
But it's kind of nice. We'll knock that out of the way.
Yeah, watch all 12 of them.
It'll be basically our first series to completion, except for
Hatchet.
So
Which
that's kind
we
of cool.
finished. Which I love those movies. But yeah, I thought I should tell you that I avoided every single Scream spoiler in one foul swoop of my finger.
That's great. We really, whenever we need to get through Scream eventually, because like it's been worse since like the franchise has been revitalized.
Yeah, people really like those movies now. Like people are into it, man.
But I swear, people are so like weirdly blatant about going, here's a picture of the killers for this movie, and it's like, oh my god.
Why would you ruin that for someone?
But it's just such a weird way of discussing the film, because like most films with like whodunit stuff like that are not as blatant as I've seen fans of like the Scream franchise be about it.
But you would think that like because they're fans of like the whodunit stuff, they would have more respect for it and like try not to ruin that for people because that's part of what makes the films fun.
I think it usually comes from a place of like, I want to talk about this character in the context of them being the killer and not in the context of them just being a character in the movie.
Yeah.
And so they immediately hit you with the boom spoiler.
Bullshit.
And it's just frustrating.
It's very frustrating.
Because it'll get spoiled for you really, really fast if you're not paying attention. So, fun fact for anyone who hasn't seen the Scream franchise, go watch them because there's so many spoilers out there.
Yeah.
And they've only gotten worse.
Okay.
All right. So, new series. I know we got a little sidetracked there. I guess this is kind of the time where we tell you what our categories are if you didn't watch the wrap-up last time.
Yes.
Going from left to right, so most important to least important.
Jesus Christ.
We got my category, which is meta slashers, which for anyone who's kind of like not aware of what I'm referring to there, which to be honest, perfectly fine because it's kind of a loose term I'm using here, but kind of slasher films that came out of the late 90s, early 2000s that were essentially all inspired by Scream, mostly because Scream basically kept the slasher genre from dying and in essence revitalized horror. But it's basically these films that have like a lot of metatextual elements where it's like we're aware of what slasher films are and the tropes of them, and let's kind of play around with that knowledge because we know you as the audience are aware of stuff. So those are interesting films. So we're going to be looking at those for our first category. Second category, we've already mentioned camp movies. We got it in the random. Kind of an unfortunate time to get it.
So unfortunate.
Wish we got it. Well, I'm glad we waited because I like some of our other randoms, but
yeah, that's true.
Wish we'd gotten it earlier because I think it's been on the random spot
since the beginning.
Like season 1. It was an option.
Yeah.
But we're gonna cover that now, and we'll do those films.
I'm so interested to see what other shit you put on there because we covered the big ones, in my opinion.
Yeah, we covered. Yeah, we covered the big one, which is the Friday the 13th franchise.
Yeah.
I know those episodes haven't come out yet, but we're covering those separately because, oops.
Yeah.
But then we also covered Sleepaway Camp, which is basically as close to as you can get to naming a film camp movies.
Yeah.
So, that'll kind of be interesting to look at because it's like, what do we do now?
Yeah.
And then the last category is space.
Yeah.
And
outer space movies.
Yeah, outer space movies. And I had to talk to Bob about this because I was like, so space is super broad. What are we talking here?
Yeah.
And I think the general premise here is it can't be on Earth.
Yeah, it's any movie set in outer space.
Yeah.
Could be on a different planet, on a meteorite, in a space station, on a spaceship. Just any movie out of this atmosphere.
Yeah, not on Earth.
Yep.
I think the barrier is the stratosphere.
Mm-hmm. So that's
Which,
exciting.
Super broad. We'll get some different stuff there.
I see. I left it broad because I don't want specifically alien films. That should be its own category.
Yes, and this is something we can always talk about going forward as we sometimes revisit your very broad choices. You specifically have a tendency to choose very broad choices.
Yeah.
Which is fine because I don't think you are as familiar with genres as I am, or subgenres specifically. But like, there isn't just like alien movies in outer space. There's like spaceship films.
Mhm.
There's alien planet films.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. But it's really broad, so that'll be kind of cool because we get to see, pickings from everything.
See, the thing is, I almost picked aliens, right, as my category. But then I was like, but I don't want alien films specifically. I want to save that for something later. Because alien films could take place on Earth, but I wasn't really interested in looking at, like, UFO films. I was more interested in looking like, because I bet you there's some really sick survival horror films set in space.
Yeah.
That's what I want. I want stuff like that.
I mean, yeah. And I think it'll be a nice learning experience because especially when you choose broad categories, I try to get a variety of different stuff.
That's also why I chose it, because I want a variety of different things.
And
from this
so,
category.
like, if you like it going forward, you can choose something more specific. Because, like you
Mhm.
said, you could just do alien films where there could be stuff on Earth, but you could do alien films where it's specifically in outer space.
Mhm.
There's, like, spaceship stuff where it's specifically
Oh.
in outer space or on,
Mhm.
like, a space station. But there's also xenoplanet stuff. Basically as much as you can imagine because, like, the sky is the limit and we're out of space, so it's beyond that.
Mhm. I don't know what that. Oh, I just thought of a movie that I want to watch, but I don't know if it has to do with space. We'll see if it comes up.
What movie are you talking about?
What's Color Out of Space about?
Color Out of Space?
Yeah.
That's a H.P. Lovecraft story. That
Mm.
could have gone on H.P. Lovecraft, but it didn't have our man,
Jeffrey
Mr. Combs, or Barbara Crampton in it. So
Yeah.
it does have the Rage Cage.
It has good old Nick.
Yeah.
Dude, he's been in some really, really funny shit lately.
Oh, yeah. I think here's a fun fact for everyone. I love Nicolas Cage.
We both love Nicolas
I think
Cage.
he's great. But I've definitely seen more Nicolas Cage films than Bob has.
That's true.
Because Bob has seen 4 films that aren't horror related.
Mhm.
One
One of them is Ghost Rider.
one of them is Ghost Rider. The other 2 are National Treasure Hunter 1 and 2.
Yeah, National Treasure. I've seen
Don't
those.
know what the third film is.
Monsters Inc.
No, Monster Inc. That's it.
Yep.
But yeah, Nicolas Cage does some funny stuff recently because I think people have gotten to the point where they realize that if you use him properly, he's a great actor because his acting style is very specific, and if you
Mhm.
match it to a good like director or script, it works super well. And a number of those movies have been like horror films.
I'm excited
Very
to
recently.
like watch some of the Nick Cage horror films that have come out.
But if you get a film that's right for him, he can also be like very funny in a comedic role. And I watched this was when it came out, but I'm trying to remember the name of it because it's super like
Is it the one with
long.
him and Pedro Pascal?
Yeah, it's the one with him and Pedro Pascal.
That the meme has come from with them looking at each other and they both look deranged?
Oh yeah. No, and I'm gonna pull up the name. There it is. The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
Yeah. I've heard that
And-
movie's so good.
I'm gonna recommend it if you haven't seen it. I know it's not horror related, but it's super funny. But it is especially funny if you're a fan of Nick Cage. So when I say a fan of Nick Cage, I mean you've seen a lot of Nicolas Cage films
Mm-hmm.
because watching that film for me, it was like every other minute there's a reference to one of his films just worked into the dialogue,
It's awesome.
and I was cracking up the whole time. And it helps that Nicolas Cage is playing Nicolas Cage in that film, and it's just like a more over-the-top version of himself. Great film. Would recommend, especially if you're a big fan of Nicolas Cage. Okay.
I have to choose, right?
Yeah, you gotta choose, Bob.
Shit. Look, okay, I'm going to do spoilers for the audience. I'm not choosing camp movies.
We've been watching some camp movies.
Exactly. I don't want to watch another camp movie. We've recorded a number of the Friday the 13th episodes already, and they haven't come out yet. I don't want any more right now. I'm good. I need a break. You can only watch Jason slash so many campers so many times, okay? And I don't really know if I want to open with meta slashers because, like, that seems like a complicated category to start with.
It's also just more slashers.
More slashers, and it's like, like, they're fun. I like them. Like, how many slashers did we watch on Avengers Prep? We finished Hatchet. We're doing Friday the 13th. There Sleepaway Camp. Like, there are so many slashers on
I
that
could go and
list.
count, but it's a lot.
It's a lot. So I'm kind of slashered out, just like everybody else was in the 90s before
Mhm.
Scream. So I'm going to start with Space.
base.
And, you know, it's really weird being here again at the start of a season because it feels like it's been so long since I've had so many choices.
Bob has choice anxiety.
I do. I'm really
Oh.
indecisive.
Speaking of which, before you actually choose what spot we're gonna do,
Yeah.
I forgot to mention this. Do you have any news to talk about since our last episode? because I do. So
Oh,
I'm gonna
shit.
disrupt you here.
Okay, if you
you-
have news,
Yeah,
we can
do you
talk
have
about
news though?
No, I don't. No, I don't have
Okay.
any news.
I have news.
Okay, what's your news before we continue the show?
I went to Gen Con yesterday.
Oh, how was Gen Con?
That was fun.
Yeah.
I walked around through because it's one big like space.
Mm-hmm.
A part of it's like actual play tables, and then everything else is like booths where they sell stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And for anyone who doesn't know, Gen Con is like RPG board game stuff.
Uh-huh. It's like one of the biggest TTRPG
Yeah.
conventions out there.
And then the stuff that isn't in that main hall is usually like separate actual playrooms for like usually sponsors.
Mm-hmm.
So like I think Paizo had their own room,
Probably.
stuff like that.
Oh, they announced some really cool shit lately. Starfinder 2E's coming out, and I'm excited.
Anyways, long story short, I walked through that main room because we covered everything
Mm-hmm.
for like 4 hours. That's how long it took to walk through there.
Oh.
Not doing anything, just walking.
It's the way conventions be sometimes, man.
So long. My legs were fine. I fucked up my back a couple months ago, and
Jesus
my back
Christ.
hurt by the end.
How's your back now? Good?
It's fine now.
Okay.
I think I pulled a muscle, and it just still hasn't
Fully recovered?
Yeah. So after 4 hours of like standing and walking, my back was just horrendous.
Did you
Anyways, yeah, and I drove down there and
drive?
back.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So, for anyone who doesn't already know too, I work night shift.
Mm-hmm.
I got off and got home at 4:30, and we left at 7. So I woke up at 6. So it was a long day for me because I didn't go to sleep until like 10:30, 11.
Now that you sleep anyway.
Well, I don't know. I passed out after that, and I slept until 5 a.m.
Damn, that's a long time for you.
Yeah. So that was kind of nice. I'm feeling good right now. Good as I can, I guess. Anyways, I brought up Gen Con because I was like, let me share what I bought.
Oh, you bought stuff. Hell yeah.
Yeah, I bought a shit ton of pins because I collect like enamel
Mhm.
pins and stuff. So that was kind of cool. I went to they had a Trick or Treat Studios had a booth because they do board game stuff.
That's cool.
And they had their new Texas Chainsaw game there.
Oh, that's cool.
So that was kind of cool. But they also had they brought a box for their Halloween game that isn't out yet. So that was kind of cool to see. They had all the pieces out so you could look at them and stuff.
Oh,
But I got a pin for Creature from the Black Lagoon there.
that's pretty
That was
awesome.
fun. But I tried not to buy a lot because, like, RPG systems are expensive.
Yeah.
And while I, like, kind of collect them because I think the art and stuff in them is cool and some of the lore stuff, they're just expensive. And if I buy them online, I can usually get a PDF.
Mm-hmm.
But a couple of the booths were offering, like, PDFs with your receipt. From, like,
Oh, that's
Drive-Thru
really nice,
RPG,
actually.
which is really nice. But then again, I still tried not to buy stuff. The first thing I bought was from Osprey. If you know Osprey at all,
No.
they're a publisher. They do a lot of really cool like wargaming rule sets that are like generic wargaming rule sets.
Okay.
So they're made to run with like any pieces you want,
that's pretty cool.
which is really cool because if you're not into wargaming, it's super expensive.
Very expensive.
But they do interesting stuff. Like they have one that's just pulp, so it's supposed to be like pulp adventure novel style stuff.
That's actually pretty rad.
Anyways, and I got something from them, and it's called the Grand Mechanismo,
Okay.
which is it's set in I believe Florence, Italy, during the time of Leonardo da Vinci, and it's clockwork punk.
That's pretty rad, actually.
And I bring it up because I wanted to show you the picture of the Grand Mechanismo.
Okay. Oh my god. That's so fucking. That's so cool.
That picture's in the book.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then the other thing I got, and I because I'm nerdy, I bought like the complete set for it. So I got the rule book, the expansion book. I got some themed dice and some like battle cards. But the Avatar: The Last Airbender RPG.
Oh,
So
I
that
didn't know there
cool.
was. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, who makes that? That is a. Oh my god. I know they just put it out. Like
Yeah.
it's new.
It's new.
Me and a
Same-
bunch of my other friends were talking about playing it.
Same company that does Roots.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
That's really cool. Very cool system. From what I learned.
Okay, Bob, I gave you time to think about what you're picking. What number for space?
1, 2, or 3. I always have a dilemma when I pick. You know what? 1. We'll start
One?
at the top of the board.
Okay.
Because it's the first episode of season 5. I'll pick spot number 1 for the first episode. It
As he
can't-
does most seasons.
It can't be bad. I don't know if I don't know. Maybe
You do that a lot.
I do.
You
It-
either go 1 or 3.
yeah.
Because I'll say you do 1 a lot, and you go, I'll prove you wrong, 3!
I never pick 2.
And then you do 2, 1. Or 1, 2, 3.
Mm-hmm.
You good with that choice, though?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
We're watching Pitch Black.
What's that?
Pitch Black. It's a 2000 movie.
Oh, 2000. Okay. It's pretty okay. I feel like we don't watch stuff from like
Yeah, it's next millennia.
2000 to like 2010 is
Yeah.
like an untouched era for us.
I mean, we've seen a couple stuff from there.
Well, Tucker and Dale's 2010, right?
Yeah.
But like between then and then, like we don't watch a lot
we
of stuff,
see usually things in the later noughties, but usually nothing in the beginning of it.
which is exciting because I don't watch movies from this era, so I'm excited to watch.
But
this.
I mean, I'm gonna be honest here. We're gonna be covering a lot of stuff around that time period because like meta slasher stuff, right?
Mhm.
But yeah, Pitch Black.
Okay. If I mentioned I'm afraid of the dark,
Wow. So weird.
oh god.
Okay. Description: a deep space transport ship crashes on a desolate planet.
Oh. Okay.
Bob, you're doing that thing when you're afraid, where you sound like a dolphin. You sound like the high tide dude from SpongeBob.
High tide.
Yep.
Except it's not high tide. I'm scared.
It's high space.
High space.
All right, it's an hour and 49 minutes long.
Oh, it's a
So
long
pretty
one.
long.
Damn.
And is rated R.
Okay.
Okay. Review scores. IMDb gave it a 7.0 out of 10.
Oh.
Tomato meter gave it a 59%,
Okay.
and the audience score gave it a 77%.
This look, a good movie to start the season.
You hope.
Well, I hope the scores are good. Damn it.
It's got 2 wins and 9 nominations.
It's a lot of nominations.
Notable actors here: Rhoda Mitchell as Carolyn Fry. She played Kate Ryan in Rogue, and Rogue's. It's a alligator movie.
Oh.
Interestingly enough, almost went on our last season.
Oh
and
shit. Swamps.
Swamp Gas. Very specifically, I was in between Blackwater and Rogue.
Okay.
Because they're both Australian
Okay.
saltwater crocodile films.
That's cool.
Cole Hauser as William J. Johns played Billy in Good Will Hunting. Bob's never seen that film.
Yeah, I literally talked about it on Tucker and Dale.
Yep. Vin Diesel.
Whoa. He's in this?
Yep.
Okay.
It's one of the really early Vin Diesel films. As Richard B. Riddick, as you know, and probably most famously, he's the voice of Groot in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Shut up.
He is.
He is, but that's not his most famous role, and you know it.
It might be, though.
No, it's not.
It might be.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Oh my
Unless
god.
you can tell me the name of that character.
I know his name.
Oh, what is it?
Dominic Toretto. I like Fast and Furious.
Oh, well, apparently Bob's seen that.
Yep.
He's seen 5 movies.
Yep.
Yeah, so Groot.
Mm-hmm.
Which, by the way, I chose that one because A, it was a funny joke, but also, he put an absurd amount of work into recording his lines for Groot.
Really?
I don't know if you've ever seen behind the footage.
I've never seen a single Guardians of the Galaxy film.
Oh, you haven't? Oh,
Nope.
Well, the first one's really good.
I've heard they're all really good.
They're all good. I've only seen, the first and the second one movie? I
Mm.
don't think I've seen the third one. Is there a
Third
third
one just came out.
Because I don't watch Marvel anymore. I'm going to be honest.
I don't watch movies besides the show.
But first one's really good and probably the best one. But that's just, how that stuff usually works out. But the behind-the-scene footage for him, recording his lines is very funny. Because you don't know about Groot as a character. All he says is, I am Groot.
Mhm.
That's, all he can say in any language, essentially. And, reasonably, you'd think the actor would record the line, once.
No, I was gonna say
Maybe
like a handful of
twice.
times.
Yeah. Apparently, he recorded it, hundreds of times, and he would just say it differently every time, and he'd, read the script to try and say it a different way for the scene.
That's
Just
so
putting
much effort.
way much work, way too much work in it for what it was.
That's actually kind of cool.
Especially because the first film was not supposed to succeed at all. So, I think that's just kind of funny.
That is cool.
Next up, we got Keith David as Abu Iman Al-Walid. He played Childs in The Thing.
I thought I recognized that fucking name.
He's also Dr. Facilier and The Princess and the Frog.
Oh, okay. Hadn't seen it.
He's the voodoo man.
That's cool.
Louis Fitzgerald as Paris P. Ogilvy. He played Lieutenant George Whidden and Breaker Morant. Claudia Black as Sharon Shaza Montgomery. She played Erin Sun from Farscape. It's an old space TV show.
Okay.
She was on 88 episodes from 1999 to 2003, and she also has done some voice work,
Okay.
very specifically for a rather well-known character for a rather well-known franchise, Chloe Fraser in Uncharted.
Okay.
And then finally, Rihanna Griffith as Jack, played Mercia in 15 Amore. Director is David Twohy. That's how I'm going to pronounce his name,
Okay.
because it's Twohy.
Okay.
He did Below in 2002.
No, that's not the same film I'm thinking of. Never mind.
No, Below is, were you thinking of As Above, So,
So below, yes. I've
No.
heard that movie is fucking terrifying.
Below is probably more terrifying for you. It's a World War II submarine movie.
Oh! No, you're right. You're absolutely correct. Fuck that.
Writer's Jim Wheat. He wrote After Midnight. The other writer's Ken Wheat. He worked on A Nightmare on Elm Street 4.
Oh, that's
Not
cool.
going to give you the epithet for that because,
Okay.
of course not. It's kind of spoilery.
Mhm.
From what I can tell, Jim Wheat and Ken Wheat are a writing team.
That's pretty cool.
So both those films I listed, they worked on it together. And then the other writer is David Twohy, this guy.
Cool.
He wrote The Fugitive, or helped write The Fugitive.
I don't know that.
I believe that's the Hook-Handed Man
Oh, okay.
with Mr. Jones as our male lead.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't know that's what it was called, but I knew of it, if that makes sense.
Anyways, budget is $23 million estimated.
It's a good
And
hunk of change.
A box office of $53.2 million.
Hell yeah.
So like decent turnout, not absolutely amazing, but
No, pretty solid.
solid.
It's been a while since we've had films that actually like turn their budget over and do well on this show.
What was the last thing we reviewed on the podcast on the board?
The Board?
Yeah.
The Uninvited.
Okay.
That was the last episode of last season.
Did that turn its budget?
I don't remember, but I don't think
That's called I Can Check really quick.
I don't remember. But what I'm saying is like I guess I'm just used to movies not returning their budget for us. Like it just doesn't happen that
No,
often.
I was gonna say we see a lot of films that return their budget.
We have recently.
Just overall.
I may be
I
over
think.
exaggerating.
I think you are over exaggerating. Anyways, country of origin, United States. I'm gonna wait on both the tagline and the also known as
Okay.
until we're done.
We have to remember to talk about those.
No, we don't have to remember. You have to remember.
No, please remind me.
Because you have to bring it up.
I'll forget.
Well, then I guess we won't talk about it.
Damn.
Sorry, future people. All right. Basically, I don't have a lot of stuff to talk about, like for facts.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of fun is basically all the external locations. So a lot of the film was shot in South Australia.
Oh.
Around, I think it's Coober Pedy. So
Okay.
that's kind of cool.
That is cool. I feel like most films that we get, this didn't come from Australia, it was filmed in Australia. But like most of the Australian stuff we watch is actually quite good. And also the Australian environment can lead to some really cool like scenery stuff. Like Blackwater specifically was just so cool because it was in a mangrove forest, and that's like such a unique to Australia kind of thing to my mind. So
Yeah.
that's nice. I'm excited.
All right. Well, we're going to get into the movie now. So we'll see you after.
All right, well see you guys in a minute. Hi everybody, welcome back. We just finished watching Pitch Black
The way you did
Jesus.
that. Hi, everybody.
because I was ow.
Okay, guys, we're going to talk about Pitch Black. So sometimes we watch movies on the show that are hard to talk about because of spoilers, right?
Yeah.
This is one of those. Because,
Is
like, yeah.
I thought we were just kind of gonna go buck wild.
We're going to have to. I'm just putting this out here that there's going to be a lot of spoilers in this episode.
Yeah, for sure.
So, like, I'd highly recommend you go watch the movie if you haven't seen it first,
Absolutely.
because your enjoyment is definitely not going to be the same
No,
if you kind of have anything spoiled.
because like there were so many moments where I was laughing so hard and was like so entertained, and you were just like, "Yeah, I've seen this before."
I mean, not even that. There's a lot of things about the plot that could be spoiled and change
That's
your
also
enjoyment.
true. That's totally fair.
So I'd highly recommend if you haven't seen it, go in blind right now and go watch it.
Mhm.
Now, if you don't care, well, I mean, that's a separate issue. Now, with that being said, spoilers from this moment on,
Yeah.
but we are going to have a low spoiler section and then a heavy spoiler section. But I think for this episode specifically, our low spoiler section is going to be like 5 minutes. And then everything after that is going to be like the heavy spoiler warning section. Because we're just going to have to do it that way to talk about this film.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's get started. Straight off the bat. Film, it's about a ship that crashes on a planet in the middle of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
And basically the lone survivors have to figure out how to get off-world.
Yeah.
And I know that's like a really simple plot. But, it's a very classic sci-fi kind of thing. And I think it's very good.
Mm-hmm.
Now, straight off the bat, and I think this is kind of a spoiler for some people. So, heads up there. But this is actually a part of a franchise. It's the first film in the Chronicles of Riddick franchise.
Had no idea.
Which Bob didn't know, I think, until
Someone said his name.
45 minutes into
And I
the
was
film.
like, oh my God, this is that?
Even though I know I said his name.
You did. I just didn't catch it.
But
Like,
yeah.
it didn't cross my mind.
Chronicles of Riddick. It's a big franchise, and it's about Riddick, obviously, who's Vin
Mhm.
Diesel's character. And so, that's cool, especially because I know people really like that franchise. However, it does reframe the film
Yeah.
because this is the main character of a franchise and not just this one movie. Because
Mhm.
this film was made not as a franchise piece. It was made
No.
as a very specifically a standalone film.
And it wraps up in like a very much a way that it would be like not a franchise thing, like single movie.
I mean, yeah, but it's more from the fact that, like, Riddick is not intended to be the main character of this film.
Mm-hmm.
He's just a character, and he obviously ended up being so interesting. They were like, let's build a franchise around him.
I mean, yeah, he's one of my favorite parts of this film. He's really cool.
Yeah, trying to think about things I can mention without spoiling anything. And there's not really a lot,
Mm-mm.
honestly. The only thing I think I can really discuss straight off the bat are, first of all, Vin Diesel's acting's really good.
And I was so surprised.
Yeah, I think this is one of those characters that's just written so well for him
Mm-hmm.
that it just works. And that's very important because, like, limited cast in this film.
Mm-hmm.
And with Riddick being one of the main characters, it's kind of, like, imperative that he's played well,
Mhm.
especially for, and again, we'll talk about this later, kind of like a weird character to have as a main.
Yeah, it's very much like he is the main character, but also like the main character is the group. But
Yeah.
it's just such a weird archetype of character to throw into this group.
Point being is, like, the film really leverages on him being, like, well acted
Mm-hmm.
and pulled off, and it's a hard character to pull off. And Vin Diesel does a shockingly good job with it.
It was really, really good.
Not to say anything bad about his acting style, but he
No, but like,
needs a specific type of character.
yeah. And I think that's why he works like so well in like the Fast and the Furious movies, is because that's just like,
Yeah.
that's Vin Diesel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's why he's the main character of those films.
Aside from that, I think there's really only like two other things we can really mention here before we have to go into the heavy spoiler stuff. Lighting stuff.
Oh man, it's so cool.
The exoplanet is in, like, an eternal daylight.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically a desert world, essentially. Not like Sahara, like sand desert, but like no water kind of desert. And the reason the planet's in, like, eternal daytime is because it has 3 suns. And to, like, reflect this on film, whenever they're outside in the sun, because occasionally they're, like, in the shade of the ship,
Mm-hmm.
like where it's crashed and everything, they put a filter over the screen to make it, like, super
Saturated.
saturated. Thank you. And it's usually saturated yellow,
Mhm.
but they'll also do this other thing where they sometimes saturate it blue, depending on, like, which sun is highest in the sky.
It's really
And,
cool.
yeah, it's really cool. It's like it's a nice little thing, but it makes everything look very alien
Mm-hmm.
in a way I really like. And I just want to mention it because, like, personally, I don't like that oversaturated style in films normally,
Yeah, me either.
just because visually I find it unpleasant.
Same.
However, I think it works in this film because it's justified, and it goes to show that even techniques I don't necessarily like, when used well, can look really good. Because it's probably my favorite parts of the outside scenes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It makes everything feel so. It just, I don't know, grounds everything. It makes it feel so like tangible, I guess, in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh yeah, the sun is blue because it's a different color star, so everything is tinted blue and it looks fine. And I think my problem with it normally is, we talked about this in Tucker and Dale, because it is sort of a style of 2010s early.
Yeah, but
Movies
also
like that.
Tucker and Dale does it for other reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, I think a good example of this would be The Reaping does it in some scenes.
That's I forgot
And we
about
watched that as a podcast episode. So
Yeah. But like, In those films, it doesn't add anything. It's just a stylistic choice that they made for seemingly no reason. But in this,
Tucker's and Dale's makes sense.
Tucker and Dale makes sense.
The
but
Reaping.
the Reaping doesn't.
Yeah.
In this, it's like, oh, this makes sense scientifically.
Yeah.
Like,
At least it gives us the feel of an alien world.
Yes, which is like I think an important aspect of this movie.
Yeah, especially because for all intents and purposes, it's visually not distinctively alien, like setting-wise. I mean, it just looks like a rocky, arid place.
Yeah, it looks like any picture of Mars you've ever seen.
And not even that, because it's not red.
No.
It looks very Earth-like because, I mean, obviously it was shot in Australia. And so besides the lack of plant life, it just looks like you walked out somewhere really arid. And so I think it's a really, not only effective, but cheap way to make an alien planet. And I just really like it.
I like it too. And the other big thing I like about it is because, like, we don't really get, because it's eternal daylight, we don't get a sense of time passing.
No.
Like, in terms of, like, days and nights. But we get a sense of time passing in the change of the color of the suns.
Yeah. I mean, I think it only happened, like, once. Like, I think we were the really saturated, like, yellow. And then blue, and then
back to yellow, I
kind of
think.
yellow. We might have gotten some red at some point, but I
Mhm.
couldn't tell because it wasn't as visually distinct as the blue one.
No.
But it
it's-
definitely tells you a lot of times passed.
It helps, like, set a time of reference for how long these people have been stuck on this planet.
In fact, my read on it is the blue was probably the quote-unquote night,
Same.
because it was a little less bright, which to me feels like then maybe, I don't know, a day, two, maybe passed. Okay, so aside from that, I think the only other thing we can talk about is kind of like an interesting background for, like, what, 4 of the characters?
Oh, yeah, this is really cool.
4 of the characters are Muslim,
Mhm.
which, you know, like, whatever, that's not a big deal. But it's interesting to see in a movie from this time period.
Exactly.
Because, you know, 9/11 happened in the early 2000s, and basically after that, you don't see, you know, an Islamic person portrayed as, like, just a character.
Yeah.
It kind of became a thing to, like, have them in more villainous roles. But in this film, like, you know, not only are Muslim characters, like, main characters, but they're just treated as, like, normal people.
Yeah, they're treated as normal people, but also, like, their religion is, like, very upfront and open about, like, they pray with, like, the mats and everything. Like, they do all kinds of stuff that, like, I don't know, I wasn't expecting, I guess, from the early movie from the early 2000s, but I hadn't thought about it. Came out in 2000.
Yeah. So, yeah, it came out before 9/11. I just think it's interesting because, like, it's done well, but the film doesn't really focus on it.
No.
I mean, I think honestly, they needed a religious character for some of the roles, and they chose to make them Muslim because desert, if I'm being honest. But I do think it's interesting that you get to see that as such a casual portrayal because it's not something you see from the 2000s really.
No, it's really cool.
Ever. Okay. On that note, I think we're gonna have to go into our heavy spoiler section, which I know we didn't do a lot here, but so much of this film is heavy spoilers.
Because, like, I guess this may be a spoiler. I'm gonna say.
Well, then
it.
don't say it. Don't say it then, Bob.
I don't know if it is a spoiler or not.
Well, then don't say it. Don't. You just wait 30 seconds. God damn.
Hi, everybody. This is Future Bob coming at you to let you know that if you do not want any major spoilers for this film, please skip to 1 hour, 5 minutes, and 48 seconds immediately. Once again, that's 1 hour, 5 minutes, and 48 seconds immediately.
Okay, now you can go.
What I was going to say before we came in here is the reason we have to do such, like, a heavy spoiler section for this is because the first, like, hour
Yeah.
is all set up.
Yeah. That would have been a spoiler because, like, the way the film's set up, you don't know the first hour is set up.
No.
You just think, like, I don't know, maybe this is a slow build.
Yeah.
But no, the whole hour is just background.
Mhm.
Because I know we've said this whole planet is eternally daylight. And it is. Except every 22 years, there's an eclipse. And assumedly, from the way they figure it out, the eclipse must last months.
Yeah, it lasts a long-ass time.
That's what it looked like from the model they were using. But yeah, an eclipse that lasts months, which is where the name Pitch Black comes from.
Yep. I was very confused for the first hour.
I mean, it also comes from the fact that we learned, like, very early on, Riddick has, like, this eye shine procedure done to him. Because he used to be an ex-con. Well, he is a convict.
I was about to say, he definitely is a criminal.
He's, in fact, an escaped convict. But he was in a prison for a while that, assumedly, he just thought he was going to be stuck in. That was probably kept very, very dark most of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the read I get on is, like, it's probably pitch black all the time,
Mhm.
except for maybe where the guards were. And so he got this procedure that basically lets him see in no light conditions at
Yeah.
all. It's not dark vision,
Nope.
but it's close.
It's similar.
Which I want to say this right now. Kind of a cool thing because like it's a weird mutation about this character
Mm-hmm.
that makes him less human, even though it is explained away in I think a fairly logical way.
Well, yeah, it's a sci-fi movie, so he's basically like, yeah, I paid this prison doctor
Yeah.
a bunch of like, I think they're cigarettes.
No, yeah, 20 menthol cools.
Yeah, and he did the procedure for me.
Yeah, and I think it's a very quote unquote realistic way to give him a superpower.
Mhm. Yeah.
But I think it's a really interesting and balanced one because it's like in dark conditions,
Super OP.
not OP, but like super useful.
Yeah.
But in like any other conditions, super debilitating.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's part of the reason why the very classic Riddick thing is he wears like the sunglass goggles.
Yeah.
Because he can't see in normal light. It blinds him.
He can, but like
It's very difficult.
light changes fuck with his eyes really
Mhm.
badly. And so like that's another reason it could be called pitch black. And I think it lets the name slide for a bit
It does. I didn't. Yeah.
until the eclipse happens. About an hour and 5 minutes into the film,
Uh huh.
or at the very least, about an hour and 5 minutes for them to realize an eclipse happening. And you know, eclipses aren't normally that bad,
No.
except for the fact that like it's pitch black on this planet. Like that wouldn't be worrying, except for the fact that this planet has aliens on it, and it's very specifically one alien species,
Mm-hmm.
and they never refer to them in the movie by name
Because they don't know they're there for a
for
while.
an hour. But also like when they discover them, they're not like, let's name them.
Yeah.
They're just, oh my fucking god, what is that?
That's terrifying.
But you can figure out their name from like, I actually don't know where they were named, but they do have an actual name.
It
'cause
might
again,
be from the video games.
this is a franchise, but they're called Bioraptors.
It's a cool name.
Cool name, right?
Cool name.
And they kind of look like, well, you can tell somewhat is inspired by like raptors from Jurassic Park,
Mm-hmm.
but they look like little dragons
Yeah. They look kind of like a xenomorph too, with like the chitinous
mixed with
shell.
xenomorphs, and then they have this weird head that's like
They look like a specific Pokemon,
T-shaped.
but I don't know. Hold on. Let me find out what Pokemon this is. Like, on God, I'm going to look it up right now.
Found it.
What-
Skarmory. This guy.
No, that's not even the one I'm looking
Oh,
for.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, they look rad.
They look
I'm just
real
gonna
cool.
put that out there.
They're so cool.
And part of the reason, by the way, they're called, I think, Bioraptors. I don't know if you noticed, like they can pull their wrists back
Yeah, dude.
and like these giant blades shoot out.
Mm-hmm.
Super cool.
They're so cool.
Their head is also, like I said, it's a weird T-shaped thing.
Yep.
From my observations, it's like sharp. Besides the fact that it's hard, it's like razor sharp. So they have this tendency to like slice things.
Oh, it reminded me of this guy. Laron.
Oh, okay.
Except
They
these things have wings.
yeah. They have this tendency to like slice things with their head or just headbutt shit because
Mhm.
it's like this hard, sharp shell thing.
It's fucking scary.
Anyways, they're scary as fuck.
They're so
uh,
scary.
And the whole thing with them is that they're super photosensitive.
Mhm.
Like light burns them like it's a vampire.
Yeah, which I think is a cool way to have like explained away why they weren't out and about at the beginning of the
Yeah.
movie.
Because it's daytime.
All
and
the time.
so where they've been are in these cave systems. Assumedly, I think they've built for
I
themselves.
think so. Yeah.
Because the characters, spoiler here, explore one
Mhm.
accidentally, and it looks kind of like, at least to me, like a termites mound kind of
Yeah,
thing.
it kind of makes sense.
Where they have these tunnels coming out, and so they've been like hibernating there for 22 years. And the second the light goes out, they swarm out, and it looks like a swarm of bats leaving a cave.
Yeah,
Because while most of the bioraptors are really big, they're bigger than a person.
they're huge, man. They're really big.
I mean, they're not like ginormous.
No, but they're like car-sized.
Maybe it's hard to tell because their head's so big.
Yeah, and they have a big ass wingspan too.
In fact, their bodies are probably around the size of like, I don't know, a raptor from Jurassic Park.
Maybe.
But they're big. But the babies, the infants, are probably only the size of like bats, and they move in these giant flocks and swarms, and they piranha shit,
Mm-hmm.
just like hit things and tear them apart and strip the flesh from bone. Anyways, the addition of these bioraptors and like the fact that halfway through the film it switches to nighttime really makes this the film hard to talk about
Yeah.
without like just spoiling that simple fact.
Yeah, because like I said earlier, the first hour is like set up for this eclipse thing that you don't know is coming.
No, in fact, the first hour is like it's set up so that you think Riddick is like the threat.
Yeah.
And I mean, the Raptor reveal happens, I don't know, I think like 30 minutes in. But even then, it feels more like a situation of, oh, the characters are going to have to go down
That's absolutely what I thought was going to happen.
into the dark rather than the dark's going to come to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it just feels like a completely different movie. And I think that makes the reveal of the solar eclipse, well, a little out of nowhere, work so well.
Yeah, no, it does.
But again, hard to talk about because it's a major spoiler.
Like, I absolutely thought there was going to be some MacGuffin down in that cave that they needed to get off the planet.
Yeah, and I'm going to say this now. About 30 minutes into the film, because they're looking for water, essentially. Because, again, it's a desert. It must be so hot.
It has to be so hot.
Because of the three suns and, desert conditions. Basically, probably no atmosphere. It's very thin. Anyways, long story short, they're looking for, like, water or anything. And they do eventually manage to find, like, it's an old mining base, but it's abandoned. Like, very obviously, there's shit strewn everywhere. It doesn't look good. But when they get there, there's basically a small ship. And it's a small, like, evac ship. I think they say it's a 2-seater. So, like, 2 pilots and then, like...
Space in the back for people.
Space in the back for you to throw, like, a couple people in seats or just throw supplies. And it's just sitting there for some reason. Almost like people tried to evac and then couldn't because there's, like, laundry hanging up and shit. Like, it's very clearly something went wrong. And, they're not able to start the ship because, like, the power cells in it are dead. So they have to run back to their ship to grab power cells.
Which is quite a bit away. Took them a while to get there.
Yeah. It's not really good at telling us how far away it is, but it's pretty far. Probably a mile or two. Anyways, I remember when I first watched this movie, you see the ship and you're kind of like, oh, there must be something they need to start the ship, like, in one of these caves.
Yep, that's exactly what I thought.
And so they're going to have to go down there, fight these creatures, and get it back. And I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Like, as a alternative idea, I like the switch up better. But
Well, because it's so much scarier because you don't have... There's no safety.
No.
Because it's like, if you just get out of the cave, you're fine.
Yeah.
But if it's everywhere, you're fucked.
And I mean, it's probably the coolest scene in the film is the fact that, eventually they're forced to walk through the darkness because for some really stupid reason, they don't get the power cells while it's daytime.
No.
And in fact, I think this is probably one of the weakest parts of the movie is the justification for this of Riddick can fly a ship, and they've let him out and about to help with manual labor. And, it's established that he can fly a ship, so they don't want to put the fuel cells in the ship before they're ready for takeoff.
Because he could just leave them all.
And so their response to that is to just not get the fuel cells, even though at this point in the plot, they know...
An eclipse is coming.
Yeah.
They don't know when.
It could be 5 minutes, it could be 10 minutes, it could be an hour, it could be days. So they just don't get the fuel cells. And that's what fucks them over eventually, is because the eclipse starts, and it's like, oh no! Especially because their transportation that they eventually find is solar-powered.
Which is another aspect of this film that I really like. Everything on this planet in the geology place is solar-powered because it's permanent daytime.
Yep, and it doesn't have batteries. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Because why do you need batteries?
Why do you need
if you
batteries? The sun's
have
always out.
power? Yeah. But yeah, they don't have power cells, and it's really stupid because, they're eventually forced to then go back to the crash site. It gets dark, and then they have to walk with the power cells back to the colony place. And, I mean, obviously, I think probably the parts where they're trying to make it back to the escape ship with these power cells are probably the best part of the movie.
Yeah.
For how much I like the buildup of this film, the whole, like, dark parts of it are so cool.
So cool.
And I bring it up because I think the coolest things in the movie is the fact that, they didn't bring specialized lighting equipment. So most of their light can only provide, like, illumination for maybe max 10 feet around them because they're grouped up for safety. And so the few times we can see, like, outside of this ring, because it's shot, like, we're the characters, there's just these things circling them like a swarm of sharks.
It's crazy. It looks awesome.
And it's super cool. Okay. Do you have anything specific you want to talk about here? I mean, we kind of talked about the Bioraptors and the plot and stuff like that. Do you have anything specific you want to mention? I maybe kind of got a few things, but...
Let's see what you got, because I was thinking of something, but you probably have a better idea than I do.
Okay. I mean, first of all, we haven't mentioned it. What happens to the colonists, I think is super cool.
It is cool.
Because it gives a very, nihilistic feel to the rest of the film, and it helps you kind of fear Sundown.
Yeah, it also like it really shows you how scary these things are.
Because you learn about it before
The eclipse.
the eclipse. But basically, they were miners, and it's implied they were more scientists,
Mhm.
like geologists. They had a coring room, like a big facility used to like drill into the earth
Mm-hmm.
and then grab core samples to look at like, you know, the different layers of like dirt and rock. And so, assumedly, once it got close to this whole 22-year thing, or probably at some point while they were living there, and it looks like they'd been there for a while for
Mhm.
what facilities they had, they probably discovered these monsters. And so when the eclipse happened, they all hid in their facility. And they were like, well, let's hide in the safest space. And the safest space for them was in the coring room, and very specifically in the hole they dug in the coring room.
Mm-hmm.
And we get to see it for half a second. Apparently, they just got swarmed.
They got annihilated. I mean, piles and piles and piles of skeletons.
And it looks like it most likely happened from the little ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, it could have been the big ones, but with how many bones are left over,
Yeah.
probably the little ones, which is horrifying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Aside from that, I think the big thing I want to talk about here is kind of harkens back to the fact that, you know, when this movie was made, Chronicles of Riddick wasn't a franchise.
Yeah.
And so, you know, spoiler here, Riddick survives, obviously, because he's in other movies. But he wasn't intended to be, like, the main character. Like, you from the outside weren't supposed to know he survived.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, in the film, he's just, like, a convict who's there and is kind of, like, almost a human threat or an anti-hero kind of thing.
Yeah, I wanted to say that in the non-spoiler section, but I didn't, you know.
I think it was a good save.
Yeah.
And so what this film does instead is it essentially has 3 different protagonists, which is kind of bizarre, but I like it.
Yeah, it's really cool.
There's Riddick, obviously. There's Carolyn, who is the pilot for the ship that crashed, and William Jones, they just call him Jones, I think, throughout the movie, who is a cop. Basically, the guy who's detained Riddick.
Mm-hmm.
And really, each one's written like they're the main character of the movie.
Yeah.
And I think that's really interesting because it, for most of the film, makes you go, okay, who should I invest myself in?
Mm-hmm.
But also because, like, it's a sci-fi horror movie. Like, you can kind of tell that from the outset. It's like, who's going to, like, make it out of here? Or
Yeah.
who's going to, like, cause problems?
And they do a really good job at hinting at what's going to happen before it happens, but then flipping it
Mhm.
as you're witnessing it, so you're like, oh my god.
Yeah.
It's really, really good.
And I think that's a little thing this film does that I think really, really helps it be so good.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of reading into it, and again, it's hard for me to do an insane amount of research, but I think, like, the actors were all kind of told that they were the main character
Oh, that makes it so much better.
and weren't necessarily given the end of the film. And so, like, the actors brought kind of the ego of being the main
Mhm.
character to their parts. And I think that really helped it.
And it helps because, like, when you're watching the film and when these characters are interacting with each other, they all have that sort of main character feeling.
No, they're written that way, too.
And they clash so hard all the time. And it adds so much. That's what makes the first hour of this film so good, in my opinion, is you have these 3 main characters that are just constantly at ends with each other, and it adds some character drama that you don't expect to get from a sci-fi horror film.
Yeah, especially because, to be honest, it's set up, and so otherwise it would have been boring as shit. 'Cause
Yes.
not a lot happens.
No.
And it's really these characters fighting for screen time.
Mm-hmm.
Not even outright fighting, but just, like, kind of
Bickering and arguing with each other.
pushing
And,
each other out of the spotlight.
like, and the cool thing is, like, the people that aren't the main characters, like all these other side characters, are also caught up in the drama.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to kind of deal with, like, whose side am I on? And who do I really agree with? What do I want to do? Which is why I want to bring up Jack. Because I love Jack so fucking much.
Yeah, so Jack he's a interesting kid. Basically, he's assumedly flying by himself.
Yeah.
And we haven't mentioned this. So it's a spaceship, right? And it was very specifically flying through what they refer to as a ghost lane. My assumption is it's basically a flight path that goes out of, like, normally safe space,
Mm-hmm.
which is probably why they crash. They get hit by, like, a meteor swarm.
Yep.
And it punches small holes in the ship. But anyways, he's traveling by himself, and I think as a part of that, he's purposely making himself try to act tough.
Yeah.
And so after the crash, and there's, like, some interactions with Riddick, he's like, who's the toughest person I know?
It's Riddick.
It's Riddick. So I'm going to start acting like him.
Yeah.
He goes so far. He gets his own, like, shitty pair of goggles,
Yeah.
which quite literally look like he got some shades that were like, hey, they were cracked. but had the
Pop out lenses.
no, like the sides of the glasses broken off.
Oh yeah.
Like the hooks around your ears,
Mhm.
and he just tied a piece of cloth from his shirt to it
Yeah.
so they could be worn like Riddick's goggles.
Mm-hmm.
And then he shaved his head.
And then he starts skulking around like Riddick and being it's so entertaining. Like that is what makes this film so strong is like all these characters are so interesting and their interactions are so strong that like while the first hour and like 15 minutes is like setup, it's not boring, it's fun.
Because it's a good character drama.
Yes.
Like even the people who aren't the main characters
Mhm.
are characters.
Motherfucking Paris.
Yeah, Paris is just like he's an antiquities dealer, and he is just like that stereotypical like rich coward character, and it's
Mhm.
really funny.
It's so funny.
Also because obviously he dies.
Yeah.
That's his character. Funny
Good
joke is right before he dies, he says, "I was supposed to die in France," and his name, Bob, you just said it.
Paris.
You're right.
Yeah.
He wanted to die in France.
Yep.
Funny joke.
Good joke. Well, actually, so while we're on the topic of this man, and we'll talk about his death while we're talking about him, I guess. One of the coolest part of his death is that funny joke, but he has a bunch of booze on the ship with him.
The whole movie.
The whole movie, he's been drinking. Everyone's been drinking booze the whole movie because,
but
yeah. No water.
He has a flask.
He has a flask, and he takes a swig of it and lights the lighter because they're afraid of fire, and he blows like a fireball, and you get to see all these fucking bioraptors around him. So cool.
Probably the coolest part of the film, or one of them.
One of the coolest parts of
Probably
the film.
coolest death, I'd say.
There's one that I wouldn't coolest death, not most brutal, because there's one
No,
that I just
not
think
most
is
brutal,
just
but
crazy.
definitely the coolest.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I think overall, all the characters are kind of like that.
Mhm.
The only ones who are disappointing is that, out of the 4 people who are like Muslim,
Yeah.
only one of them is like an actual character,
Yeah.
and that is Keith David's character.
Mm-hmm.
They just call him Imam the whole time. But he has like 3 kids with him
Mm-hmm.
that assumedly he's just taking on with him on his trip. They're going to New Mecca.
Yeah.
Which is not really talked about in this film outside of the name. But they're basically going on a pilgrimage, and his 3 kids are basically non-characters. They're
Yeah.
just bodies there.
They're just around.
And so I think they're the only ones who are disappointing.
Yeah. I mean, they had to pad the number somehow.
Yeah.
Because, like, it's a horror movie. People gotta die.
But it kind of sucks because it stands out so much for like
It does because everyone else is so well characterized
Yeah.
and have, like, cool moments and stuff.
they at least explained it away as I don't think they speak English.
I think they speak Arabic the whole time.
I think they only speak Arabic, which might be another reason for why when they needed a religious figure,
Mm-hmm.
they chose like Islamic. Anyways, aside from that, do you have anything else? Because I have one other thing, I think.
We haven't really talked about. We've kind of talked about them, like, trekking through the dark. You
Yeah.
know. Some of the coolest parts about them trekking through the dark is how they use, like, lighting in this film is so integral because the bioraptors are afraid of it and get burned by it, and also Riddick has a light sensitivity thing. Once they're in the dark, they do such a good job with lights.
Yeah.
And, like, it intensifies the fear of the bioraptor so much because you see lights go out and you're like, oh my god, oh no, it's gonna go bad. And
I mean, this film plays around with like fear of the unknown.
Mhm.
It always reminds me of the scenes when they're in the dark of like, Bob's gonna hate me for this, the ocean,
Ugh.
and kind of being like, I can see where like around me, but
Mhm.
nothing else, and I know there's stuff there.
Yeah.
Also, they're building on that pre-existing fear of like, Riddick has this whole eye thing where he can see in the dark, but nothing else. These things are the same.
They do a lot of really interesting things with lighting. Like,
yeah.
the lights that they use, when,
Again, they're like rigged.
yeah.
They're not like spotlights or anything.
Mm-mm.
And so for each different light source, it affects like how light's seen around them and like coloring and everything like that.
They also have, like, some really cool futuristic lighting stuff because it's a sci-fi movie. Like,
Like you could make it nowadays. Obviously, it's made practically in the movie, but it just looks cool.
it just looks cool because it's a sci-fi film, and that's nice. Like, they're, like, weird, like, cool green flare torch things.
Yeah, like
And,
they
like-
could have used standard like red.
Mm-hmm.
They
And there's,
use
like,
green.
fluorescent tubing that they, like, tie around stuff. All that stuff is really cool. I just thought I'd mention it because it's a big part of this film.
All right, you have anything else? Because I want to finish with something. And then
We haven't really talked about how good, like, of course, Vin Diesel does a good job
Mhm.
acting, but the person that plays Johns and Fry are both really good too.
Yeah.
They're, like, really, really good.
No, once again, I think all the character actors who play actual characters do a good job.
Yeah.
And we kind of talked about that.
We kind of talked about it, but I just wanted to highlight it again because I was surprised. Like I was.
Yeah.
This movie surprised me in a lot of ways.
All right.
Yeah,
Good.
yeah, we're good.
Okay. Then I'm gonna finish up with talking about the aliens.
Okay.
Right? Okay. So they don't make a lot of sense, right? Because they are very clearly a creature adapted to darkness
Mm-hmm.
that lives on a planet that is bright for
All
22 years
The time.
and then is dark for maybe a couple months, right?
Mhm.
Now, assumedly, you could explain this away as, oh, this species hibernates for 22 years, like cicadas or something. But that also doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Yeah, there's too many of them.
Especially with how many there is, and the fact that there's no food on this planet.
No.
It's implied that there used to be big stuff. There's this big like bone graveyard,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like an
Oh,
elephant graveyard.
So cool.
And the creatures that these things must have been before they died were massive.
Huge.
And so like it's assumed that the number of creatures there is now probably just ate all those to death.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's essentially allowed them to reach these numbers and kept them alive. And that makes sense. But aside from those creatures, there's no other life on the planet except for
Mhm.
some slugs that we eventually see in the movie. And again, that doesn't make sense at all
No.
because that's not how species work, especially with the whole sun burns them.
Mm-hmm.
And so my whole take on this, and I think this is just like kind of a really cool behind the scenes like world building thing, if my take is correct, which I mean I think it is, of these creatures, the bioraptors, are invasive species. They somehow got to this planet, and like a lot of invasive species do, they didn't have any natural predators, and so they bred like crazy, and they ate everything.
That explains why it's like, an arid wasteland.
Mm-hmm. And when I say they ate everything, I mean everything. Like I think they ate all the big creatures. Like we see the bones from that.
Mm-hmm.
But assumedly, I think they might have eaten like the plants too.
Mm-hmm.
Because very clearly they're predators and they're predatory. But most carnivores are not like obligate carnivores. Like
Mhm.
they're capable of eating some amount of greenery. They don't like doing it, and a lot of it can make them sick, but they can still do it. And so I assume what they did was kind of like locusts, which I think lines up with some of the appearance of the little ones when they're
Mm.
swarming,
Yeah.
where they just spawned in huge numbers, and were able to do that because if there was a jungle at one point,
Oh, yeah.
there was some shade. But the second like an eclipse happened, they just devoured everything.
And then had to find somewhere to live and dug a bunch of, termite holes.
They probably did that when it was still some greenery out
Mhm.
there. But yeah, they probably ate everything, and then over 22 years, with everything dead, it became arid.
Makes sense.
I think that also kind of lines up with the fact that, there was a coring team here of geologists.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't make sense for a coring team of geologists to be on a desert world like that,
Yeah.
really. 'Cause if there's no plant life or anything, there's not going to be, like, oil, you
No.
know? So my guess it was probably an Earth-like planet that they were, like,
Probably.
studying, maybe for colonization,
Mm-hmm.
and then gets fucked. So I just wanted to bring that up because I think it's kind of one of the weaker parts of the movie of the fact that they don't make sense to be here. Even
No,
though
that makes sense.
they're really cool.
They are really cool.
And so I think that can be easily explained away of, oh, they're invasive and they just
Mm-hmm.
absolutely murdered everything. It does raise the other question of, oh my god, what does their home planet look like?
That's fair. God, I
'Cause,
don't want to
like-
go to that planet. That planet must be terrifying.
They're colonial, like they live together, but they're not like cooperative.
No.
So
Oh.
they must have predators. And I
thought
think
of
that
something we
leads
should
us
talk
into
about.
another thing of
Yep.
these creatures act very animal-like.
Mm-hmm.
Most, I think, movies have a tendency to make your monsters behave like intelligent.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we've talked about it a lot, but like in Jurassic Park, the velociraptors act very smart and they have pack mechanics, but they behave like monsters. And in this one, they behave like animals and non-cooperative animals.
Yeah.
There's a couple kills where they fight over bodies in a
Mhm.
very animal-like way.
Yeah.
Like just tackling, rolling. But also there's a scene where my read on it is the creatures are swarming so much that they're accidentally hitting each other with
Mhm.
their heads, which, as I said, are sharp. So they're accidentally like cutting each other in half.
Yeah.
Which I think is just a little cool addition.
Yeah, and I appreciate the fact that these creatures are animal-like because it makes this is a sci-fi movie, but it grounds it in a lot of ways. 'Cause it's like, oh yeah, these are just animals basically.
Yeah.
Makes them so much more scary because like animals are unpredictable and terrifying. And one of the coolest things is like when they're fighting with each other, since they have such hard skulls, they just like headbutt each other.
Like
And,
rams.
Like rams or like a moose or a deer would, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just such a natural way to show their level of intelligence and how they interact with each other, and it's super cool.
And it's what makes them so scary. I mean, the fact that these creatures are so well thought out. I mean, well thought out. Like they talk a little bit about their biology and stuff. Is really what makes the last half of the movie worth watching.
Yeah.
Besides like the lighting and stuff.
Like, because they don't have good eyesight, they have sonar. They make whale or dolphin sounds, or
Oh yeah, and you can hear it the whole movie.
and it's terrifying because it's
Yeah.
you can't see them. They're just out there.
But you can hear them.
Yeah. They also do some really cool stuff with, because they have to explain, show you Riddick's, night vision. So they show you that, but they also show you the creature's vision,
And
which
it
is very
looks
poor.
Staticky and
Mhm.
black and white. Nice.
It's nice. It's just all the little stuff with the creatures really helps make them really cool.
Okay. That aside, I think we're gonna go back to the regular section so we can do the reviews.
Yeah.
So let's get to it. We're back. Bob, give your recommendations.
If you're a fan of Vin Diesel,
Yeah.
Vin Diesel.
Try not to spoil things too much with your recommendations here.
Vin Diesel, real cool.
He is in this movie.
He's in this
Surprise.
movie, and he's awesome. I like him a lot in this, actually. So that's one big thing. If you like horror sci-fi, this is a good horror sci-fi movie. I didn't know how I was going to like a sci-fi horror movie. Really good time. Surprisingly so.
Bob, I'm concerned that you didn't know how you were gonna like a sci-fi horror film since you chose sci-fi horror as your category.
That's why I chose it, is because I haven't really watched any, so I didn't know how I was
That's
going to
fair
feel.
enough.
It was one of those things where I went, I know Ben likes these types of movies. Maybe I'll like them. We'll see.
Yeah.
The only sci-fi horror movie I've seen is Alien. It. I like Alien. Alien's good. But,
I'm not sure how much you remember of it.
not a lot. I watched it when I was 12. And I walked out
12. Oh,
because I was scared.
when'd you walk out? Let me clap here so we can cut this. I'm just
I'll just tell you
curious.
after.
Oh, okay.
I'll just tell you after. So, you know what we almost forgot?
What?
Tagline and the other thing.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
We'll interrupt my recommendations with this. Sorry.
We interrupt these recommendations to bring you the startling news. All right.
I'm glad I remembered.
They're kind of spoilery. Just so you know.
Yeah, that's why you didn't tell me.
So I meant to give them to you in the spoiler section.
Oh, shit.
So do you want me to clap here and we can insert them there?
No, because I'm not. That's.
Bob's like, I don't want to do that. Fuck that. Tagline: Fight evil with evil.
Oh, that's cool.
And then, taglines: The Chronicles of Riddick, Pitch Black,
Okay.
and Nightfall.
Nightfall's a good name.
Hmm.
Pitch Black is better. Nightfall's good. Okay, back to my recommendations. Vin Diesel, sci-fi horror. We kind of talked about this in the spoiler section. Well, if you want a film that has a really good cast of characters, I think all these characters are super well characterized and super interesting. And since it's sort of we gave you the premise of it's basically kind of like a survival horror film on a crashed alien planet. So that's pretty cool if you're into that sort of vibe. I like that a lot. I think that's it.
Okay. For me, I mean, Vin Diesel film, that's a very obvious one. I mean, that most people know Vin Diesel. So if you want to see him in a role where he does a very, very good job that isn't Fast and the Furious,
Yeah.
check him out in here. Next one is, again, sci-fi horror like Bob said. I mean, we're going to be covering a bunch of those this season. But it's kind of cool to see a sci-fi horror film with Vin Diesel.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd also say almost a sci-fi horror action film.
Mm.
So if that seems
That was
like
what I
a
was going
good
to say, but I
idea,
thought it would be too spoilery.
check it out. It has Vin Diesel in it. You know.
Yeah.
You know.
It really gets high octane and it's really fun.
And then last but not least, in kind of a rare circumstance, if you want to see a horror film with good characterization
Mhm.
and character drama, check this one out.
It's good.
Because it's well done. It's what keeps the film, I think, as interesting and as on point as it is.
Yeah.
All right. On that note, rate it, Bob.
Look, this is a good movie. I like this movie. It has very few issues, in my opinion. And I can't say what that is. Never mind. The issues I have with it, let me just put it this way, come from the fact that it is a movie from the year 2000. So I don't know how much I can really dunk on it for that. Because it's they did the best with what they had at the time. But there are some moments where I go, that's not as good as it could be.
What Bob's referring to, let me handle this. It's the visual effects, right?
Yes.
And look, they're really, really good
They're really good for the year 2000.
for the year 2000. They are, however, not amazing by modern terms.
Yes.
They are passable, though, and that's more than you can normally get from a film from this era,
Yes.
especially for the budget, because 23 million's a lot of money,
Yeah.
but not a lot of money for a sci-fi film that relies on visual effects rather than practical effects.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I mean, it pops out. There's a couple CGI stuff when they're in space, or
Yep.
some of the really bad ones are some of the like environmental CGI stuff,
Mhm.
like some fires burning that I was like, that is a
CGI fire.
composited fire.
And like, I don't want to hold that against the film too much because it was
I-
made in the year 2000.
I almost don't think you can hold that against the film
Fair enough.
because it's super well done for the time.
Mm-hmm. My only other issue with the film, other than that stuff, is there's some weird editing choices that stick out as early 2000s editing things that I'm not the biggest fan of.
Are you referring to that they put a fisheye lens over some of the scenes?
The fisheye lens and also some really weird slow-mo stuff
Okay.
where I'm just like, that was a little much.
The fisheye lens usually makes sense because the character has received head trauma or something at the time period.
Mm.
The slow-mo that's just slow-mo.
Yeah, I'm not but the thing is, once again, it's style choices that come from the period. So I don't want to dunk on it that hard.
And they're never egregious.
They're never egregious.
They're
No.
almost weird because they're used so little.
Mm-hmm. 4.5.
All right.
This movie's super fun. I had a really, really good time. I was heavily surprised by it. One of the best parts of this film, it's an hour. How long was the cut we watched?
I can check really quick. We watched the unrated director's cut.
Which
Super great because
Super great.
like
we normally don't get to do that kind of thing.
we normally can't even find that
Mm-hmm.
because, stuff like that is usually reserved for Blu-rays. And so getting to see that on, rental, because we have to go get these video on demand stuff.
Mhm.
So getting to see that now was kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
But our cut was a little bit longer than the time period I
Which-
gave.
Was what, an hour 46 or something? 49 maybe?
The cut we watched was an hour and 13 minutes.
No, it's
So-
more than that. It's 113 minutes, which
Yeah,
is
I'm sorry, 113 minutes. It's an hour and 53.
an hour, so a little bit longer. It doesn't feel like that. It goes by so fast, and it feels so well paced out because just right when you're like, man, this movie's kind of feeling a little slow,
It gives you new stuff.
switch up.
and it
and
does
they do
that
something
multiple
cool.
times in the film.
And it's always like something interesting that you didn't expect. So it's
Yeah.
really cool and fun. So like this, I was surprised. I was very surprised by this film. I had a really good time.
I think I'm also going to give it a 4.5. And, part of that is I just really like this film.
I mean, yeah.
Like, for me, it hits a lot of bumps from what I want from, like, a sci-fi horror film.
Mm-hmm.
But besides from that, I think just a lot of the stuff in it are really, really good for the time period. And there's nothing in it that really stands out to me as, like, really bad.
Yeah.
And, like, well, it's not something we've talked about, I think, a lot. Well, I have a lot of the same points Bob has for why I like it. The film's also really funny.
Oh, I laughed so many times.
There's a lot of things that are just woven into the story that just, I know, made Bob laugh out loud. And they feel natural. And I
Mhm.
think it's part of what makes this film so good is because, yeah, they keep giving you stuff and they keep you entertained by like, oh, I think I have a handle on this situation, but here's some new information. And like that makes the film good, but also adding these other elements like humor to keep you entertained really pushes up there.
Riddick has so many fucking phenomenal one-liners in this film.
Or just characterization moments.
Just characterization moments that are really good. Jack's really funny.
Yeah.
Like,
Anyways, I really enjoyed it. I talked about the visual effects stuff with Bob and whatever. Basically the same reasons as Bob. 4.5. Okay, well, we're going to go to the outtakes. We'll be back in a minute.
yeah, we'll see you guys in a minute. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this outtake section for this episode of Beware the Board. I hope you're enjoying our review of Pitch Black so far. I really like this film. I think it was a very good introduction for me into sci-fi horror and also really fun. But if you do not want any spoilers from this outtake section, please skip to an hour, 22 minutes, and 8 seconds immediately. That's an hour, 22 minutes, and 8 seconds immediately. This first clip is our reaction to seeing Vin Diesel do something really, really cool with his own body, and also Ben telling us a fun fact about it. Oh! Oh my god! Did he just, like, dislocate both of his shoulders
Yeah.
and roll? Oh! God damn, Vin Diesel. That was uncalled for. Oh,
Now he's
well,
free.
he is free. Motherfucker. Ooh.
So I couldn't find too much about it, just with my sources. So I'm not sure 100%.
Yeah.
But I think Vin Diesel did some of that like dislocation shoulder stuff himself.
That's fucking awesome.
I'm not sure if he actually had the dislocated shoulder for it, but he did some stuff like that. I'm not sure if it's
It's pretty cool.
But I'm not sure if the footage where he did that made it into the movie.
Okay.
You know?
This next clip is me finally realizing what franchise this movie started.
Oh my god, I know that name. Holy shit.
What?
That's what this movie is?
How do you know that name?
The video game.
Oh, the Riddick movies?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what this is from?
Yeah.
This is like the first one?
This is the first one.
Holy shit, I didn't know that. That's awesome.
I think you've only played the one video game.
Yeah. All I know is that he's just like a badass with night vision or something.
Yeah.
That's kind of awesome. Okay, cool.
Which, to be honest, there's not really any spoilers in the video game, so you're good.
Yeah, in that, the goggles.
The only thing you know is that Riddick has night vision.
And he's also badass,
Yeah.
which I already got.
Which, makes this a very unfortunate place for him to be.
Yeah, because it's daytime all the time. Oh, that's a cool, like, space-age shotgun. It looks kind of nice. Looks like the shotgun from Warhammer 40,000. Like the Astartes shotgun.
This first clip is our reaction to seeing what the Bioraptors can do to someone for the very first time.
Oh, no. What is happening to this guy? Oh, he's getting fucked up. Oh, God. This is... No. No. He just got pulled down a fucking hole.
This next clip is our reaction to seeing the Bioraptors for the very first time.
What is that? What the fuck is that? What in the fuck is that? Oh, God.
Were you not expecting there to be something down here, Bob?
Well, I expected there to be something down here, but I did not want that. Oh, man. You know, I had a lot of anxiety to the start of this movie because we were in outer space, and I thought being on the planet would help. It's not helping. Oh, but it does mean I get to see Riddick fight some aliens. That's
This next clip is my reaction to seeing the Bioraptor baby swarm for the very first time.
What was this? Bats? Oh my god. Oh my god, he's getting whoa! Getting fucked up by space bats.
This next clip is our reaction to seeing what a swarm of Bioraptors can do to a person, but also seeing what happened to the people that used to live on this planet.
Oh! That is not I don't know what did that to him. I would be out of there so fast.
The little bats.
Yes, the bats did that to him.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Holy shit. That's so many so many bones.
They basically piranha'd him.
Yeah,
Bob.
they like oh,
That's why he didn't have any flesh, but he wasn't like chomped in half or anything.
yeah. Oh god.
This next clip is my reaction to seeing what Johns likes to do in his free time.
Damn.
Cool scene, right?
Yeah.
Especially with the timing there at the end.
Mm-hmm.
What I will say is like, I mean, obviously Riddick's trying to set everyone on edge, right?
Yeah.
But like, I don't think
he has bad intentions.
he necessarily has bad intentions, because like
If they die, he dies.
that, but also
Oh god. God damn it. Poor timing. Whoa. God. He just shot shit in his eyeball.
yeah, go straight to the brain.
Oh.
This next clip is me reacting to seeing the Bioraptors swarm out of their hive after the eclipse begins to happen.
Oh god.
What could it be, Bob?
I don't know what it is, Ben. Do these things have a name?
Yeah, but I don't know it off the top of my head.
Okay. Oh my god. Fuck this. Fuck this. Absolutely not. There's like thousands of those fuckers. Maybe tens of thousands of those fuckers.
Thousands might be low.
What? Beautiful, my ass.
Well, he can actually see him, and it probably looks really cool.
Deadly.
I mean, yeah.
This next clip is my reaction to probably the most brutal death in this film. So brutal, it actually left me speechless.
Oh my God. That's oh my God. That's so Holy shit. What the fuck? How does I was about to make I was about to make a statement like this isn't really a horror movie. That's fucking scary.
This next clip is our reaction to seeing a full-size Bioraptor for the very first time.
What is it, Bob?
No fucking way.
Those little ones, Bob? They were the babies.
They get bigger.
They get much bigger. Much, much, much bigger.
This is
And now, it's dark.
getting out of hand.
This next clip is our reaction to just how many Bioraptors there really are on this planet.
Oh my God. There's so fucking many.
Yeah.
And they're just like following right outside the light like that.
It makes sense. I mean, we saw how many there was in that first shot.
That's terrifying.
There's probably more we didn't see. And also, like, have you seen anything else for them to eat?
Nope.
'Cause I haven't.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the outtakes. Oh boy, Benjamin.
What boy? All right, we don't really have much to announce right now. I mean, we've kind of talked about it on this episode, but we got Friday the 13th stuff coming out.
Oh,
Those are coming out so tomorrow, so Saturday.
yeah.
So you get to look forward to one of those after every episode of our regularly scheduled programming.
For the next 6
while.
weeks.
Yeah, 6 weeks. But we also are releasing one on Wednesday because we're doing 2 a week.
Yeah.
And Bob wanted to put it on Wednesday so he has more time.
To finish them. Because I'm going to be real. I guess maybe it was a spoiler. Those episodes are long as balls. There's a lot to talk about. It's a really famous franchise.
So far.
Well, yeah. We'll see when we get later in the franchise.
Yeah. Aside from that, check us out wherever you get your podcasts. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, other places. We're also on YouTube, which is kind of nice because you can show us some support there, with likes, subscriptions, stuff like that. It's also one of the 2 places you can communicate with us on. You can do that in the comment section of a specific video if you want to comment on that video and something that was in it. Or you can talk to Bob on Twitter. Yell at him about how you need a receipt for some of these episodes and
God damn it.
how much they made you chuckle,
Oh, my
maybe-
God.
scream and rage. Bob, you want to say anything?
You always make good. That was a good reference, but I don't know if we talked about it during the episode.
No, we didn't, which is the best part.
Yeah. That was only for me then, huh?
Yeah. Or if you've seen this movie. Like,
Yeah.
you should have.
You should.
Listen to this
Good
episode.
movie. Like Ben said, you can check us out on Twitter at Beware the Board. It's where I post updates about the show, information about the show. Basically, if there's anything you want to know about the show, it goes on our Twitter. Also, it's where I post memes. We always have. Look, that Sleepaway Camp meme, top notch. All the memes go on our Twitter.
I couldn't tell from your initial reaction.
Shut up. On Mondays, on Mondays, I post a spoiler post for that week's episode, which is basically a hidden movie cover that you can reveal to see what it is so you can watch the movie before we do, so you don't get any spoilers during the episode. Then on Fridays, or whatever day an episode goes live, which currently is Saturdays and Wednesdays on top of our Friday episode, I post a link to the episode, so if you ever miss an upload or wonder when something went up, there's always a link to it on our Twitter. And now, last thing, check us out on TikTok and YouTube Shorts. If you're into short form content and you like the show, I basically cut outtakes from the show or clips from the show and post them into little bite-sized pieces on TikTok and YouTube Shorts for your enjoyment. So, if you like the show, check us out there. I think that's it.
Okay.
All right. Well, see you guys next time.